Welcome back to Comment Frontline, everybody. I'm Brant Fowler, aka the Gonzo Goose, back with you for another episode of 123 Podcast. Now, usually Chris and Alan and Justin, I believe, do these. They cover they do a live show covering the pay-per-views every month. This month, Chris wasn't available, so excuse me. Me and Chris were supposed to get together to do a recap, and Michael as well, I believe, of Summerslam, which took place tonight, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to get a hold of him. He did have prior engagement this evening, so it could have possibly ran late, and he wasn't able to do it. So, anyway, I thought I would jump on here, do a special, really short kind of recap and discussion of SummerSlam 2016 about what kind of went down on this this momentous occasion. Basically a 6-hour show, because it was a 2-hour kickoff show which featured 3 matches, and then your 4-hour SummerSlam event. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about every single match, and I don't, off the top of my head, remember the order the matches took place in. I think I have a rough idea. So, basically, here we go. For the kickoff show, like I said, we had 3 matches. There was the 12-man tag team match. It was 3 tag teams on each side. You had the Vaudevillains, you had the Ascension, and you had I am blanking on the third team. Vaudevillains, the Ascension, and one other team that I'm sure will come to me before the end of this. On the other side, you had the Usos, you had American Alpha, and you had, it was Breezango. That's what it was. Now I lost. It was on the other side. The Usos, American Alpha, and wow, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. Anyway, there was another team there, so it was a decent match. Really the only 2 teams that mattered in this match were the Usos and American Alpha, because the Usos kind of stole the victory from American Alpha, and they're kind of building this up. And Jey Uso, man, he was on fire. He was like ready to go at American Alpha, and American Alpha was just smiling and happy, and it was like they played up their confusion thing, but Jey was like, it was like there was legitimate beef there or something. I don't know what was going on, but anyway, I'm sure we're going to see Usos and American Alpha tangle in the near future. It was an okay match. We also had the last match before the pay-per-view was the first match, I believe, in the series between this best of 7 series between Sheamus and Cesaro, which of course Byron Saxton said best of 6. He was just off all night long. We'll get to that in a bit too. I didn't watch this entire match because I started watching SummerSlam late, so I was trying to get through the kickoff show as fast as possible. So I watched a bit of it here and there. It was your typical Cesaro Sheamus match, and Sheamus ends up winning with a brogue kick. So he's the winner of the first match in the series. The other match was the Dudleys versus wow. I can't believe I can't think of these teams. It was it was Sami Zayn and Neville. Jeez, man. Sami Zayn and Neville were excellent as usual. The Dudley boys, they did a great job in, kind of selling the other team, but still appearing strong. So it was a solid match, but really all these matches were kind of throwaway. Cesaro and Sheamus, it's a shame that wasn't on the card, but there was a lot of matches on the card. So getting into the actual card, speaking of tag team matches, you had Enzo and Cass facing off against Jericho, excuse me. And Jericho in great form in the back. During the kickoff show, they were talking about how they were apologizing about calling Tom the wrong name, that his real name was Phil, so they called him Phil. That was good. They were classic. They're really good. And how Jericho became a certified G by taking a test online, so it was good. Enzo came out there and threw out every New York cliche phrase he could. They were on fire though. There was a great spot where Cass threw him over the top rope at Jericho, and Cass he had to lean so far that he almost toppled over the rope himself and kind of played it off by jumping out. But both of them were excellent, and it was a really solid match. Unfortunately, Enzo kind of suffered the worst of that as Jericho kind of took him out. But I thought that was a really good match. The women's match I was really disappointed with on a couple of levels. The first women's match, the women's title match between Sasha Banks and Charlotte. Sasha Banks was excellent as usual. She's my favorite right now. I wish she had won. Unfortunately, she didn't. But that's not what I'm unhappy about that, but I'm more unhappy with Charlotte's performance here, because usually Charlotte is very good. She's, whether you like her or you don't, and I don't like her character that much, but she is great in the ring. She's a great in the ring performer, and these two can put on some great matches. Unfortunately, this time Charlotte messed up a couple of times, especially 2 or 3 times, especially throughout the match, and one time really bad that could have potentially injured Sasha seriously. She wasn't paying attention to what she was doing. She was, I would say, she was probably just overzealous and excited. She knew going in she was going to get the strap, and she was nervous and wanted to be, her absolute best. But she dropped Sasha, and Sasha was misplaced, and Sasha landed straight on her neck. It could have hurt her seriously. And there was another time where she kind of dropped Sasha and they had to play it off and recover, and then there was one other time as well. So it was kind of sloppy throughout, so I was kind of disappointed with the outcome. But Sasha was excellent with the bank statement, the transitions into those moves, so I thought she was fantastic. I will say one thing before it's like towards the end of the show, but there was this really stupid commercial of some chicken thing. It was a KFC thing, and Dolph Ziggler was dressed up as a Colonel Sanders and beat The Miz as they did this thing where they went in and out of the screen and into the ring. And this is why Dolph Ziggler is not your world champion after SummerSlam, because that's his role. He's that guy. He's stuck. And no matter how great that promo on SmackDown was, where he said, when you're thinking of one more move and he comes up with the super kick, that was straight out of the Shawn Michaels playbook. He was excellent in that segment. That was all washed away by showing that KFC commercial, in my opinion. That killed his character altogether, because you can't be tough and be portraying Colonel Sanders, and then he lost anyway. Dean Ambrose was like, of course you're going to lose. Come on. He was like motioning the referee at the end. Come on. So it was just, they buried Ziggler again. And I hated that, because they gave him such momentum going in. But it was a pretty good match. There was a lot of back and forth between the two, and Dolph Ziggler pulled out every move in his arsenal. Ambrose pulled out every move in his arsenal. It was a really solid match. So I hated the way that it was played, though. But that was a little bit later on. I'm trying to remember what other matches came in between all that. I'll jump ahead a little to the other women's match. Man, talk about sloppy. It was Naomi, Becky Lynch, and Carmella. I'll get to that in a second as well. Versus Natalya, Alexa Bliss, and it was supposed to be Eva Marie, but she didn't show up, of course, because she really can't wrestle, so they're doing what they can with her character. But the returning Nikki Bella, and that set the crowd off. They loved seeing Nikki, and they were cheering for Nikki. And the weird thing is, going back to Carmella, the Staten Island princess in Brooklyn, used to be hot attraction with Enzo and Cass, got silence. There were crickets when she came out. Every time she got in the ring, every time she did a move, crickets. The only time they cheered was when Nikki Bella hit her with the forearm and pinned her. I was really disappointed by that. I mean, her hometown, her home state couldn't even get behind her. That blew my mind. I didn't understand it. But whatever, because I thought she did really well. Is she the absolute best I've seen? No. but she held her own, and she had some really good spots in there. That super kick was awesome. So I thought she was really good. I didn't understand that, but man, there was so many miscues throughout this match. Alexa was a little bit sloppy throughout. Carmella was a little sloppy. So I mean, they just came up. They're nervous. This is their first SummerSlam. I understand it, so it's fine. Naomi, when she said it's glow time and did the kicks, that was awesome. So it was an okay match. It was a filler match, obviously. Speaking of filler matches, man. Oh, and before I get to the filler match, going back to Byron Saxton, because I forgot to mention it during the Jericho match. He makes this comment and says to Graves, "Would you believe Jericho if they told you ants could fly?" And I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, obviously somebody didn't see Ant-Man. But anyway, as Corey Graves knew and pointed out, and everybody else in the world probably knew, there are such things as flying ants. Ants that do have wings, Byron. So, he was very plain and very sloppy throughout, but not as bad as David Otunga, who is obviously reading from a script. And if he's not, man, the dude needs some lessons, because he sounds like he's reading straight from a script. So anyway, moving on. Speaking of filler matches, Roman Reigns versus Rusev, which was right before the main event. We'll get to the order of matches here and why I had a bit of a problem with that in a minute. But Rusev and Roman Reigns were supposed to fight for the United States title, and Rusev attacks him before the bell, and fine, they fight, they brawl, they take out chairs and everything. But then they call the match off because Rusev's too hurt. And Roman Reigns, he sold this really well, and so did Rusev, to his credit, holding his ribs and being in pain and everything. And Reigns is like, no, you did not call this match off. And comes down and gives him one heck of a spear. I thought it was an awesome spear. It was an awesome spot. But it was disappointing that we built up to this match and then it's just thrown out like that. And it was very quick. That disappointed me a little bit. I'm sure I'm missing a couple of matches because this was such a packed card. I mean, you got 4 hours. I'm actually going to try to bring it up just to see if there were any matches that I missed throughout the event that I haven't talked about, because I'm about to get into the main events. Oh yeah, The Miz versus Apollo Crews. That was a pretty decent match. I'm disappointed with the outcome, but it was an expected outcome because Apollo Crews is brand new. He's not completely over with the fans yet, and The Miz is a known commodity. So, you had to expect that Miz was going to keep the title, but hopefully Apollo Crews will get it down the line. But it was a decent match, and I love that he countered the what is Miz's new move called now? Whatever is, I cannot think of the name of his move. Man, I'm just blanking left and right here tonight. Anyway, so he countered it the first time and then recovered. Miz recovered and got it on him anyway. So. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson versus, which is the club, versus the New Day with Jon Stewart. Man, why did they bring Jon Stewart back? He was so boring through every segment, and he was getting booed left and right. It was awful. Don't ever bring Jon Stewart back. And as a matter of fact, just leave celebrity guests out because nobody likes them. Nobody cares for them. We don't like to see them. It just takes up space. And I get it. You got to cross-promote. You got to do things like that. I don't care. I don't want to see it. Anyway, I've never been a fan of Luke Gallows. Never. Maybe for a minute Asbestos, but ever since then, never. And Carl Anderson, I don't like either. They are the most plain, vanilla, boring tag team I've ever seen in my life. I don't like them. I don't like this doctor gimmick. I don't like he keeps saying testy every single time you see him on screen. It's just dumb. I never watched the Bullet Club. I just know of them, so I have no history with them. I'd like them to just go away. So, they defeated New Day here, unfortunately, but the return of Big E, who took them out, was nice to see. So there was that. So we get into the 3 big matches, because I already talked about one, which was Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose. AJ Styles versus John Cena. This was a fantastic match. It really was. John Cena was pulling off moves, some that we have seen on rare occasions, like the jump up, flip over powerbomb thing, and pulling out new moves that we haven't seen. I appreciated that he was stepping up his game, and the truth of the matter is, the fact is, AJ Styles forces John Cena to elevate his game. There's no question about that. There was a great "Let's go Cena," AJ Styles chant back and forth throughout the entire match. I thought that was, great, and the love for AJ Styles throughout that match and everything he put into that, because he was putting it all out there. He was taking everything John Cena had and countering it and getting up from it and showing exactly who he is and what he's made of without any interference. And he took everything John Cena had, and there was one point where John Cena was just in the corner, and it was great facial expressions and great close-up camera work on his face there. We know John Cena is not the greatest actor, but in this moment he was like, what's going on here with this guy? I can't put him away. No matter what I do, I can't put him away. And then he gets this determination, and he does the super I almost called it the FU because that's what it used to be called, super attitude adjustment, and tries to go for another attitude adjustment, and AJ Styles counters into the Styles Clash, and then follows it up with the elbow and takes out John Cena. And John Cena sits in the middle of the ring, takes his armband off that says "Never Give Up," puts it in the center of the ring, and walks away. Is this the last we're going to see of John Cena? Probably not, but that would be a fitting send-off if it was, in my opinion. So, we get to the two main events of the card, which are Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins and Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar. Finn Balor and Seth Rollins. That was an interesting match. Now, before I get into that match, the order of matches here, you had Ambrose and Ziggler earlier on, even though the WWE World Heavyweight Championship is the title that has been held by all the greats. That match you put mid-card. We knew it was coming because obviously they pushed Seth Rollins and Finn Balor more. They pushed the Raw product more. So that's no big surprise. Then you put Finn Balor and Seth Rollins second from the main event. You had a match in between, which was a Roman Reigns-Rusev match, and then Brock Lesnar and Orton, which I'm not that surprised about, because usually when there's two big names in a match, whether the title is involved or not, it's going to be the last match. I'm old school. I feel like the world title, the main title of the brand, should be the final match. That's your main event, no matter what. So I always have a problem with that. I understand why they did it, because Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton, it's huge. But, that aside, we know that that's the way they book these things. So, speaking of booking, we got Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. Not just Finn Balor, the Demon King. Comes out in the smoke and everything, and bad camera work, because they show him before he actually comes through the smoke, and that kind of ruined the mystique a little bit. So he comes out, and when you see the Demon, if you're familiar with him from NXT, you know that he's going to another level. And yeah, he's going to take his lickings just like any wrestler will, but he's on another level. He's not regular Finn Balor. He's supposed to pull out everything. We saw the Demon King get his butt handed to him for at least 80% of this match. Seth Rollins, now granted, Seth Rollins is the man. That's fine and well. Most wins at a pay-per-view. Fine and well. He is the guy. But, man, he just dominated Finn Balor almost the entire match. I didn't understand that. Regular Finn Balor, okay. The Demon, it should have been a back and forth. And it wasn't. It was like Finn Balor would get a few flurries and then get his butt handed to him for a few minutes. And then get a few flurries and a flurry, and then it was like that all throughout the match. And you don't see anything different. I think if you're going to be two different characters. If you're going to pull this special character out for your main events, for your big matches, big card matches at the pay-per-views, then you need to have some moves that you pull out that you don't use normally. Kind of like AJ Styles and John Cena did in their match, where they pulled out moves that they don't typically use, just like Seth Rollins did in this match. He pulled out a move that he doesn't normally use. But Finn Balor just used the same moves he always uses. So I was kind of disappointed with the way that whole match played out. Now, Finn Balor wins. Okay. Wow. I honestly did not expect that to happen. I thought Seth Rollins was going to be the first Universal Champion. But it did. It solidified and cemented Finn Balor's legacy. Here's a problem, and Seth Rollins commented on this on Twitter after, post-show. Every time this new title belt was shown, it was ringside, the fans just stopped paying attention to the match and started booing the title. I get you don't like the title. It's red. It's kind of strange. It's because it's Raw colors. It's exactly like the WWE title, but it's red instead of black. It's stupid. Yes, I agree with you. I understand. But why ignore the match and start booing the title? That's just, and that's their prerogative, but it devalued the match. So that bothered me as well. So this match was just, it didn't live up to the hype in my personal opinion. So we get to the main event. Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton. 15 years in the making. Came up together. Were in OVW together. Debuted together. Never faced. So we're told. Suplex City versus Viperville. Randy Orton just needs one RKO. Overall, if you look at the way this match happened with the back and forths and the moves and everything that happened within the context of the match, they did make Randy Orton look strong at first. It was good. He was holding his own to Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar took him in the corner, and he was pounding the crap out of Brock Lesnar's back. It didn't stop him. He still got suplexed 7 times, but he fought back. He got some good licks in, and he was giving Brock Lesnar not as good as he was getting, but he was given enough to take him down. RKO on the table outside. Another, then straight following that, a hard spike DDT from the ropes. Then a second RKO, which Brock Lesnar kicks out of. Fine. That's fine and well. Then the way the match ends. Brock Lesnar pulls off his gloves and goes into ground and pound. MMA style. Which is fine. Okay. Randy Orton looks like a total punk here. He covers his head. He goes limp. If this was a UFC fight, it would have been stopped way before it was. And it would have been a TKO. Now, the difference is, this is the WWE. This is not UFC. And in WWE rules, if you don't pay attention to the admonishings of the referee, you get disqualified. You don't win by TKO in a wrestling match. You get disqualified. But what happened here? Randy Orton gets busted open by a forearm chop. And they stop the match and award it to Brock Lesnar as a TKO. They completely changed the rules of the match, and we're left with basically a no contest, and Randy Orton bleeding out, and then Brock Lesnar F5ing Shane McMahon as he walks out staring down Shane McMahon. And this is how you end one of your 4 biggest pay-per-views of the year, the one that they played up as big as WrestleMania with this 4-hour and this whole weekend thing and the NXT takeover the night before. This is how you end, by having Randy Orton look like a punk, bleed out, SmackDown general manager get F5, and Brock Lesnar walk out basically with a no contest. But he wins because the referee didn't disqualify him, just rewarded him for not, adhering to the rules. Okay. I hated the way this match ended, and it sullied the pay-per-view, because a lot of people when they're watching it, I've noticed this from fans on the internet, and just people I've talked to and friends of mine, when a pay-per-view ends badly, people tend to associate the entire pay-per-view with the way it ended, with the way that main event is. I understand that, but I disagree with it. I think you have to look at every match and look at your overall enjoyment as opposed to how it ended and what kind of taste it left in your mouth. But at the same time, WWE should know that that last thing that they see is what they're going to remember most, and that's what's going to leave the taste in their mouth. And that is what defines a pay-per-view in fans' eyes. And what the fans think, regardless of what Vince McMahon's character portrays, definitely matters. So it's disappointing that because of that ending, it's going to leave a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths for this pay-per-view, when overall, at least I'd say 80% of the matches were solid. Yeah, it's probably an average pay-per-view. In my opinion, the Cena AJ Styles match was one of the better matches on the entire card. And this match had the potential to be a fantastic, great match, but they just could not let Brock Lesnar have any form of an equal whatsoever until Goldberg eventually comes, as we know he will. So, disappointed a little bit, but that's, those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you thought of the pay-per-view, and I apologize that I'm the only voice you're getting to hear this time, but at least you're getting to hear somebody on 123 Podcast this month. So, anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys think of the Brock Lesnar Orton match and what you thought of the pay-per-view overall. Overall, I thought it was like middle ground. There were a couple of highlights throughout the night. Like I said, the Sasha Banks match, aside from a couple of sloppy things and a very scary near injury, was a really good match. Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler, hated the way it ended and hated that they showed that stupid KFC commercial because it kind of ruined whatever character they were building for Ziggler. And the John Cena Styles match, aside from that, it was pretty middle of the road. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens on Raw, if there's any backlash from what's coming. We know that from here on out we're getting both Raw and SmackDown pay-per-views. Don't expect anybody from 123 Podcast to be covering every single pay-per-view in some kind of live show or whatever. It's just, there's no way, there's no time for that, at least not at this point. So, but definitely we'll be back for something. So just stay tuned to Comic Frontline for the next things or whatever, and we'll be chatting online and stuff about it, and let's just hope that the fallout from this and where it goes from here moves up, gets improves and everything. This was the last cross-branded pay-per-view for a while, at least probably until Survivor Series. So we'll see how they handle the Raw and SmackDown pay-per-views when you don't have the others to feed off of, and you don't have that crossover match of, like we had with Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar here. So it'll be interesting to see. So anyway, those are my thoughts on SummerSlam 2016, and we'll see you next time right here on 123 Podcast. Bye, guys.